Really? There's monkeys everywhere! Get out of here! There's monkeys! It's not scary when we call them monkeys instead of apes! Monkeys! I'm so annoying.
Family. Future.
I know why you're scared. It took us 4 years fighting that virus, but we are survivors.
It was a virus created by scientists in a lab. You can't blame the apes.
Who the hell else am I gonna blame?
We need to give them a chance.
Welcome there, animals.
Please. I've seen things. I've seen the way they are. They want what we want, to survive.
Caesar, home. This is your home. Your home.
Are you aware they are going to turn on you?
They don't want a war.
No, don't shoot!
Caesar, you have to go.
Go. Where? Apes! Together! Strong!
War, it's not what you want. There must be another way.
War has already begun.
All right, we are talking about it. We're doing it. We are taking on these damn dirty apes.
Ugh.
And this is the Film Board, our monthly special edition next reel show where we take on a current release movie. And this weekend, this is the big one. Everybody's talking about Apes. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I'm Pete Wright, and we're here with Steve Sarmento.
Film Board friend.
Tommy Handsome.
Hello, friends. Monkey joke.
Am I supposed? Is that a cue?
I don't know.
All right. And Andy Nelson.
Hi. I have no monkey in me today.
Oh, you do. You a little bit. You just have to bring out your inner. Oh,
How's
Jesus. Just bring out your inner monkey. I didn't think we'd. I thought we'd have to tease it a little bit more.
Oh, nah.
That's all right. And so here
I'm
we go.
easy.
Matt Reeves, written by Mark Bomback, Rick Jaffa, Amanda Silver, based on, characters mostly in the book Planet of the Apes by Pierre Boulle. And, if you've spent any time, watching, I don't know, are these in circulation right now? Have we seen these on late night cable in a while?
I have never seen any of them, to be honest.
Really? Whoa, what?
I mean, I know the spoiler alert at the end of the first one, but I've never seen any of them. I never grew up with them. I don't know.
So you haven't seen the best of the series, the Mark Wahlberg?
Oh, no, I did see that
what?
one, and that one made me angry.
You owe it to yourself to go back and watch.
Yeah, no, you really do. And you know what? I actually it's a real treat. I haven't watched them all, but iTunes did this special, all 5 HD, with lots of behind the scenes stuff for like $20. And so I downloaded them all. I've been watching them this weekend, and I got to tell you, those movies actually hold up pretty well.
Yes, they do.
I was super surprised at once you get over the fact that those are, their mouths don't quite work, and occasionally when they open,
prosthetics.
Yeah, and occasionally when they open their maw, their mouths, occasionally when they open their mouths in there, you see their second mouth inside their ape mouth. Yeah. If you're not careful. Anyhow, we're not talking about those movies. We probably will, but we're not talking about those movies tonight. What we're really talking about is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Let's go around the horn. What do we think? Andy, you go first. You never go first.
Oh, sure. I'll go first. Well, I'm a big Planet of the Apes fan. I enjoy all of the movies, and I actually rewatched the original 5 movies to warm up for this, and Rise of the Planet of the Apes, wisely skipping Tim Burton's movie. And I just love the universe, and I really, really loved what they did with this film. And I love that it was really ape-centric, pretty much. And I felt they really did it justice with an amazing story and mind-blowing effects.
Excellent. Steve?
I would have to say this was, billed as like a summer blockbuster, but it doesn't, to me, really feel like a summer blockbuster. I mean, I love this film, but I'm excited to see that it's doing well, but it is so much more. There's so much more to the story than just a typical summer blockbuster. So I think we'll have a lot to talk about. I'm really looking forward to delving into some of the themes and topics that I see in this film, because there is so much that they did with this that it's just very impressive.
I like where this is going. Tommy?
Well, you're not going to like it as much.
Oh, no.
I'm very conflicted about the film. I thought it was visually stunning and a lot smarter than it needed to be, which I always appreciate from a summer tentpole, like what Steve was just saying. But to be completely honest, I didn't actually enjoy the experience very much. For me, it was basically 2 hours of like a few decent humans and apes having their plans ruined by a bunch of jerks. I understand the allegory, but many sequences left me with, no one to root for. Most of the time, I have to be honest, I just felt vaguely anxious and sad. I respect the movie, and I thought it was well made. I didn't enjoy it very much.
Vaguely
right?
Anxious and sad.
The whole time.
You're the worst Amazon review ever.
Am I?
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know. Maybe I'm in between. I actually did enjoy myself at the movie. I found, this is, I guess I'm excited to see that this is an Andy Serkis film. And it's an Andy Serkis film where he is getting top billing playing a performance-captured character. I love that. I love the whole idea that this movie showcases the technology in such a brilliant way as to capture who this character actor is and make a character monkey. I was really moved by his performance, and I really could see him in it. So once you peel back all my enthusiasm for him and what they did with the apes, I found myself, I was engaged the entire time, with the exception of the interstitial sequences, particularly in the first hour. They would go through these little sequences where there would be, usually one or two characters talking, and they would be talking about backstory, or that just felt really kind of jarringly awkward to me. Some of the interpersonal, the human interpersonal kind of relationship dialogue, usually where they're trying to tell me something that I probably should know, in a way that didn't come off very smoothly, and it sort of interrupted the flow of the film for me. So I had some challenges with the what I'm going to call script challenges. But this was a film that I think couldn't have been told without the technology catching up to the intention of the story. And I was really excited to see that. This is one of those showcase pieces for me. I don't know how well it's going to hold up. I guess, like Tom, I feel like it may be, it may have a shorter shelf life. So anyway, still very excited about the film. I think that those who are most excited about the film should determine where we go from here. Steve, Andy, what do you want to talk about first?
Why don't we talk about the story? It seems like the thing that's most conflicted. I think we all agree that the effects are stunning and
phenomenal,
mind-blowing as far as what they achieved in this film. Maybe we get that out of the way first, since we all agree on that point. And I right from the beginning, I have to say, looking at Caesar in the opening shot, sitting there on a horse in the rain, I felt like I was looking at an actual creature that was actually sitting there. It didn't, in no way did it look CG. It really blew my mind through the entire film, looking at these chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans, that they looked so real.
It's incredible, and it deserves, I don't know, it's probably pretty hackneyed to talk about, but like in our lifetime, Can you remember what things used to look like?
Well, it's really easy, Tommy, because 1973 wasn't that Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, or that maybe that was it. Yeah, that was Battle for. It was one of the last. So we can actually chart in our lifetimes what the apes looked like.
Yeah.
Over the last 40 years. I mean, that's unreal.
Yeah.
But we can even go back to last summer and the Wolverine and that bear, that CG bear from the beginning of Wolverine, where he's off in the wilderness.
Oh, that was trouble.
And then the bear and these apes interacting in that initial scene. I'm watching a National Geographic documentary of this wild tribe of apes. I mean, I can't tell.
Yeah. It was thrilling.
It's amazing.
Agreed.
Okay.
And not just that they captured them so well, but that they gave them such personalities too. Because I know Andy Serkis is there acting all of this out. I mean, if you've seen any of the behind the scenes of where you can see them in their motion capture suits, I mean, all of these actors are giving full on performances here, and the amazing CG wizards are able to capture those performances in ways that really make these things live. That's really what makes you attached to them, and it really brings out authentic characters.
I would add to that. We're going to talk, I'm sure, a lot about Andy Serkis and his performance, but in general, you look at the other primary apes, Toby Kebbell playing Koba, who when you go and find clips of this guy and see and watch his sort of humanity. It's incredible just how much of him is in this character of Koba. I mean, just as Andy Serkis, it seems really weird, and I keep catching myself to call Dawn of the Planet of the Apes a character film.
Yeah,
but to me, it really is.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's so many not slow but soft, intimate character moments with fake things.
Yes.
With things that don't really exist, which is a phenomenal step forward. That's incredible. I also liked a bit the stuff that I did like. I love that the film, this isn't a spoiler, begins and ends with, I don't think it's a spoiler, begins and ends with a close-up of Caesar's eyes, because I think that's where most of the humanity comes from.
Yeah.
I personally think that's where a lot of the motion capture fills it in, but it's the eyes that make things really, really work.
I wrote that down. This whole idea of the uncanny valley, usually where the effects in digital creatures fall apart is in the eyes. I did not question that once.
Right. They usually have dead doll eyes, like Polar Express and stuff like that. This was just, you were just really looking at a real thing. It's a good point.
Yeah, that was incredible.
And it made me wonder how much, if at all, were they actually capturing the real eyes of those actors and using them, as the one human element in a CG body. And I don't know, but I mean, the eyes did catch me as just being so authentic and so real that I was wondering that. That's the sort of amazing CG work that actually makes me ask that question.
Well, it is, and to Tommy's point, clearly the filmmakers realize that they've hit an achievement point here, like a milestone, or they wouldn't have opened and closed on such a dramatic close-up of those eyes.
Yeah,
that's them just taking another lap.
That's right. Good job, me.
Good job, me.
I'm the worst.
Does anybody have an absolute favorite 3-second long ape clip from the film that they would like to talk about? Because for all of us, it should be the same. 3 seconds.
Second long?
It's a gorilla. 3 seconds.
It's a gorilla?
It made me so happy I nearly stood up. Nothing?
Wow.
I
was going to say the shot at the top of the tank.
It was in that fight. There is a sequence where a gorilla walks up to a barrel and stands up and throws the barrel. It was a full-on 3-second Donkey Kong homage. And I nearly stood up and applauded.
Do you really think that's what they were thinking?
I didn't even think of that.
It was
either.
It
Throwing
was so
flaming
funny.
barrels.
I was with the shot, but I didn't think that was really. Do you really think that that's what they were going for?
I
That's
hope
funny.
to God they were. That would just make my experience complete. It was so good. I nearly shouted in the theater. I was like, "It's so Donkey!"
Oh God.
That's awesome. Oh, I didn't catch that. I remember the exact shot you're talking about, but that whole sequence, spoiler alert, was a very difficult sequence for me. The entire huge battle, but I think we can get to that later.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about that though.
All right, Steve, where do you want to go from here?
Well, we can talk about. I mean, the moment for me, that was really powerful was, and this is it throws us into sort of the turning point of the film, is there's a scene where, there's just flames everywhere, and we have a scene with Koba and Blue Eyes, Caesar's son, standing there, and there's sort of this agreement and understanding that they now have as sort of the ape city is just being engulfed in flames, and they're sort of silhouetted by those flames. And for me, that was just a powerful moment. And I looked at that afterwards. I thought about that scene and thought, I don't know that there was anything actually there. I mean, you've got actors, yes, but again, flame, everything. But to have one of the most emotionally powerful moments in that film at that turning point be something that was probably at least 95% created on a computer is, again, I think speaks to the level of achievement that we've gotten to with the ability to create and generate realistic environments.
Steve, maybe this is along the lines of the theme that you were thinking of, which is this idea of parallelism in the film. That essentially what we have is the same story being told with humans and then with apes, right? It's sort of a mirror story. Am I alone there?
Oh no,
you're exactly right.
Yeah, I was sort of going through my notes, and that was my first response was, you've got these two men, that are trying to create a safe environment for their family, and you've got one that's sort of a family that's now sort of cobbled together from the remnants of humanity. You've got a father and his son and his girlfriend, and they're trying to establish this family. And then you've got Caesar and his family and his community. And I thought, okay, there's something there, and there's that parallelism there. But what I thought was really interesting as I thought about it more was the humans need the apes. That's what they set up early on, that the humans, they're not going to be able to achieve their goal unless they contend with the apes and come to terms with this, whereas the apes don't really need the people. What is it that they need? Nothing. They need to be left alone. And so I thought, okay, so what is the difference between that? Why is that the setup? Why is there not sort of that parallelism of the humans having something that the apes need? And that leads down a broader path to a much larger theme, I think, which is about, you almost get into colonialism of what happens when a society that is now crumbling has to contend with something that it has created, because the apes, these intelligent apes, are the byproduct of something that the humans did. And if we translate that into how does America deal with, we have taken on this stance of creating little democracies. Now, what happens when our society starts to crumble and these democracies now have to become something that we have to contend with, where we used to be in control and now we're not in control, and we may need to have to go to them for things and they don't need us. So what is that relationship going to look like? And you look at as Tom said, you've got these characters that are going to stir the pot, that are going to be these, we've got these bad guys on both sides that have this animosity for very realistic reasons. For the humans, you've got those that hold the apes responsible for the simian outbreak that took away their families. You've got Koba, who has this history with being abused by humans. So you've got these voices within these tribes, for lack of a better term, that don't trust the other. And I think that's the same situation we have here in America of, we've got to deal with these other societies or civilizations. There's people within our tribe that don't trust them. There's people within their tribe that don't trust us. But we can either try to work together to be successful, or we can end up destroying each other. And it was something that I thought, wow, this is a lot more going on in this story than just there's some apes that look cool and people and there's fights and stuff. There's a much broader theme about how we survive in this world.
I completely agree.
Something,
yep.
Sorry,
everybody loves what Steve said. Sorry.
Well, it's something that the Apes series has been doing from the beginning, dealing with whether it's nuclear war or race relations. They've always been trying to find a way to incorporate elements of what was going on in society at the time into the films, and that's why I think that it's a series that has stood the test of time, and it can be viewed as just kind of a fun sci-fi film that gives you a lot of action and adventure and fighting and apes. But when you look at it, when you step back and you look at it, there's a lot of other interesting things going on that are definitely worth talking about. And that's one thing that always has drawn me to the series.
Maybe, to be honest, maybe this is me bending down and holding up my monkey hand for forgiveness, is that maybe that's part of why I didn't quote unquote enjoy it. I think, of course, consciously or subconsciously, it touches on things like Native Americans versus America. It touches on political parties like Tea Party, Republican versus Democratic. And it definitely has a lot of potential ramifications from September 11th. The idea of using fear to motivate, to do whatever, to when something terrible happens, then reason gets thrown out of the room. Maybe I just have too much anxiety about that and mob mentality, and instead of enjoying how smart it was for bringing up those kind of ideas in a new way, I just felt sort of uncomfortable with it. I'm willing to concede that.
Well, I think that's an interesting perspective too. It's this idea, and I think one of the things I like about it, this movie, is a celebration of cultural conflict. When these belief systems come into too close a proximity, what happens? I want to go back to something you said, Steve. This idea that the apes don't need anything. I think one of the things that that really stuck out for me, even though there was an obvious and practical need on the human side, right? They needed to get this dam working, and the apes lived on the dam, right? So they needed to get this dam working so that they could have power and heat, and the ticking clock was, they're running out of gas. They got 2 weeks, and they've got nothing left. So they had a practical need. But over and over again, you see examples in the ape community of their burgeoning civilization, their cultural identity that is still so new, breaking down. Right. What I kept finding myself thinking is, God, they really need, what they need more than anything else is humanity. Right. They need to find a coexistence that works so they can continue to learn. Everything that Planet of the Apes sets up is all about how it starts for Caesar to learn from humanity, the good and the bad. And it seems like when things fall apart, it's when that mob mentality takes over. It's when that the sort of lower level cultural mentality takes over, and they forget where they are moving toward and start falling back to the more animalistic, where they are coming from. And one of the things I love so much about the ape civilization, that ape culture, is because there is just enough humanity in it. I think we get to that. They're holding up that mirror for us to look in the face of Koba when he's doing that stupid monkey dance to get closer to the guns, when he is lasciviously looking at the crates of weapons. We get to see ourselves. I thought that was a particularly powerful need on behalf of the apes.
But if we're looking at if they are us looking at ourselves, what humanity are they finding?
Well,
I'm still not sure that
take
means...
a look at these sequences, like particularly when they were ready. That you could tell there was great pain in the fact that Caesar's wife was ill. Right, there was great pain, but they didn't know what to do. They sort of end up resorting to this. Hey, we're gonna have to watch her. We've done our best. We're gonna watch her go. And now we see there's medicine. Well, that's a system that we can put into place, a system of trust we can put into place to heal one another.
Is that humanity or is that advancement?
Oh, I think one sort of washes the hand of the other.
Okay.
I think advancement comes from a need
to work together.
To work together, right?
Sure.
So
yeah.
So to me, that was, I loved watching the apes, kind of discover that, and particularly the big spoiler, when Koba attempts to assassinate Caesar. That in fact is the worst example of humanity.
Right.
That taking the very worst of what we have to leverage for personal gain and to
Caesar. Oh, dumb. I just figured that out.
I had to.
Am I the only one that just figured that out? I totally am. Please write down the time code and take this out because it's so embarrassing that he was destroyed by his own people. Okay, got it. Ooh, I immediately was like Lion King. Probably because the bad guy has a scar on his face.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I might not be smart. Okay, go ahead.
Although to be fair, Caesar is in the original series, and he isn't taken down by his own people.
Okay.
So it's really, I think, more. It plays well, a throwback to the original series, plus kind of that tie-in to getting assassinated by one of his own.
Okay. Well, and Andy, maybe you can talk to that in a little bit too. It's this idea that this is not a remake but a reboot, even though the premise is notoriously close to the last two movies of the original.
Yeah, but first, let me just to the point you were just making. The idea of the humanity, I think, also it comes out in the fact that this is a new civilization that is just trying to figure out what it is, and really, because apes have never had this level of intelligence before, and they're 10 years into it now, but they're still trying to sort things out, and they're still at this naive system of their own understanding that ape will not kill ape, and don't trust humans, only trust apes. And I think there's an interesting level of the growth of their humanity in understanding what trust is, and how trust doesn't come from people who are just your kind, but coming from, but that there are other people out there who are good people, and there are people of your kind that aren't good people. And I thought that was a really interesting growth of the humanity of these apes in the film that I found to be one of the more powerful elements told in the story.
Totally agree.
That's a good point. It starts as like 4 legs good, 2 legs bad,
right?
But then it becomes something. Oh, that's really smart. That's interesting. Okay, yeah.
So, are you convinced yet, or shall we keep going?
I'm working on it.
All right.
And I forgot completely what other question you had asked me, Pete.
Which it was about the this idea. We were talking about the parallels between. I think just briefly for those who haven't seen or haven't, you watched these things recently.
Well, I think that the original series, you've got the Planet of the Apes, which people have an understanding, what happens there, and then beneath the Planet of the Apes, where a second rocket lands on the planet, figures out what's going on, and they're trying to find Taylor, Charlton Heston's character, and he had gone underground, and it turns into this it's kind of the silliest of the movies. There's an underground tribe of humans that worship this doomsday device, and the apes end up attacking, and basically this doomsday device gets set off by Charlton Heston, and it actually destroys the planet. The planet is obliterated. And then in the third film, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, you find out that Cornelius and Zira, along with one other ape, managed to get into Taylor's spaceship and escape from the planet. And somehow, because the planet exploded, they went through a time hole and ended up back in 1971. And it's the strangest of the movies. It's the concept, the whole conceit of the time travel is, I think, the weakest element in the whole series of the Planet of the Apes. The fact that the way that apes ended up becoming intelligent is through this time loop where they went from the future into the past, and then they had their son Caesar, who ended up rising and creating the ape system, the ape society. And I think what they have done smartly with this reboot, starting with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, is take the silliest element of that whole initial series, which is the time travel element, and go, okay, that's how they said the apes came into existence. Let's come up with a new way that these apes came to be. And so they came up with this, this company,
Alzheimer's
Genesis,
drug. Right.
Exactly. And that is essentially kind of they didn't reboot necessarily the first or second films. They really kind of rebooted it at the time where apes time traveled back to our present and kind of set that ball rolling. And I think that this is a much smarter way to tell the story. And I like that it's really the humans who, like, in a way, like Charlton Heston says at the end of the first movie, you did it, and speaking to the nuclear holocaust and everything, but really it's like, you also did this. You also are the ones who created this Planet of the Apes by trying to mess with nature.
Yeah,
and it's an interesting development.
I think that's an important thing to have walked through, Andy, because and check me on this, but I find I have a greater appreciation for these two movies, Rise and Dawn, having seen where they came from, because now I can see where they're going. You can sort of see how they're set. I mean, we know how it ends, right? We know how it ends because it ends with the original.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, right. It ends with the original Planet of the Apes, right? We end by seeing what civilization looks like that has been totally kind of redone by sophisticated apes. But I love the journey, and I think they made some smart choices with this one in particular. It is who was it who said this is not this feels like more than a tentpole? Steve, Tom, one of you guys said this.
Well, I think we both did.
Yeah,
I said that it was a lot smarter than it needed to be.
Yes, that's right. That's
yeah.
right, because there's this idea that the film itself is it's kind of a small film. Right, it's sort of an intimate thing. Like it is all about these like tribes in the woods in one place in California. It's not about a Planet of the Apes. It's about kind of between Muir Woods and San Francisco. Right, it's really, that's not a really big stretch, and so you have this feeling of compression in the film. I think that allows it to take on a bit of a more of a nuanced approach to the timeline that we know has this inevitable end, and I really appreciate that choice.
Even you didn't feel like it was it felt long to me. 2 hours and 12 minutes. You didn't feel like it was kind of spinning its wheels sometimes with, like, trying to do something and a jerk makes it fail, trying to do something, a jerk makes it fail, trying to do something, a jerk makes it fail. It all moved forward for you enough?
It did for me.
Fair enough.
And again, this is why I said this may not have as great a shelf life in that regard, because I was still really so fascinated by what I was seeing, that every time a jerk made it fail and there was some sort of ape retaliation, I was in it.
Okay. What's the name of the actor who played the first guy that shoots an ape? The guy that knows how do we know the name of that actor?
Kirk Acevedo.
Ooh, good. Wow, good pull. He was insane. He was so insanely evil and mean that just started even when the little most adorable baby monkey, and I don't care for monkeys. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
This is something that I probably should have been made earlier. Should have been made obvious earlier. But like,
are you scared of monkeys? Do you have like a fear of monkeys, like many people of clowns? Is that kind of what we're talking about, or?
I think so. I don't know. I don't find them adorable, but mostly because we keep dressing them up as humans, and I don't care for it in pictures on my Pinterest. All right, I'll go away. Point being is, even when like the most adorable little puppy monkey is like playing around, he's immediately like trying to stomp on it and stuff. Like, that stuff just made me the ignorance, the anger, the fear in the film was so wrong-headed that it just made me feel uncomfortable, and I didn't enjoy it. It hurt for me the setbacks of like what the heroes were trying to do.
Oh, you're just talking about because you were having a reaction to like the bigotedness of it.
Yeah, maybe. And I'm very, very willing to say that it's me and not the film. But I just was like, yeah, but you're just the worst of humanity, and we're putting you in the same situation always with the best of humanity, ape humanity or human humanity. And so it just kind of felt like, oh, we have this great plan, and then dumbness is just hitting us down and hitting us down.
The interesting thing about that, though, that I think plays in a unique way, maybe, is that this is a film with talking apes.
Yep.
Which none of these people had ever seen before, and so I think that if I were to see a talking ape, I would naturally be very reserved and afraid to open up to it. It's one of those things where it's just like there's a way of relating to people that I think in a situation where you're coming up against a different tribe, you can find some way to kind of communicate and come together and everything. When you find a tribe of apes that up to this point you had never seen before in your life, other than like in a zoo or in wildlife documentaries, acting like we've always seen them doing. If it were to do something completely different, I don't know how I would react. I don't know if I would be any different than Carver was. Paranoid about this animal that there's many more of them than there are of me, and am I going to react differently than him? Would I be able to be as bold and strong as Malcolm was with these things? I don't know. I mean, it's a completely foreign situation to be asked to be put into.
Well,
That's
I think
a really,
Andy,
really great point.
Well, I think if you go back to sort of the expositional title sequence, they do address that they talk about the roots of the simian outbreak, and they do have newsreel footage of the battle of on the bridge. So it wasn't that their only knowledge of these apes. I think they were aware that there was something different, that these apes had been part of some assault on people. Obviously I don't know that they knew that they spoke, but I think they were aware that there was something different about them. I think they're shocked at the extent that they're organized, but I always took that as some sense that there was this rebellion with these apes that were led by Caesar, and that there was some awareness of that. I think they weren't expecting to encounter them there, but my interpretation was always that they were familiar with, there was a group of apes out there that were more than the typical apes that you see in the zoo or at National Geographic. There was something distinct, because they know the roots of the simian outbreak have to do with some genetic engineering, and they talk about Caesar in that in the opening sequence. So I'd say that, to me, I always took the hostility as more of that wrongheadedness of, I'm blaming these apes for this virus that killed most of humanity. And they try to explain, well, we're the ones that created that. But for them, it's still that wrong-headedness, that closed-mindedness of, well, it's called the simian flu because it came from the apes, so the apes are at fault, and I'm going to hold them culpable for my loss, and all that hatred that Carver has, that Gary Oldman's character Dreyfus has. And I always took it as more of that there was just that animosity of that lashing out towards as part of that grief, that anger and grief of the families that have been lost, and coming face to face with who it is that you hold accountable for that. They're the ones that caused this. That's why my family isn't here. This is why my friends aren't here. That's why we as a people aren't here, is because of these apes. And I think that's what I always took it as, not so much as the just coming across something unknown or unexpected. There was something more sinister and hostile in his anger.
Well, I would agree. I think if you look at Koba too, that's the parallelism coming back into play, right? Both of these guys, it wasn't just wrong-headed; it was vengeance,
right? And Tommy, going back to your point about the guys that are always going to do the wrong thing, and despite the good people that want a good things done. Just watch the news. I live in Arizona. We see it. I mean, in this country all the time, we see people just like that. And to me, it was part of something that we always see, where there's always something good that we as a people can do, and then there's always going to be a couple outspoken individuals that will represent this very external point of view that can completely derail the best of intentions and drive a wedge between something that at a very crucial juncture of coming to some type of peace or agreement that can be quickly undermined by the actions of just a few individuals.
Now, let me just say, I just watched Snowpiercer, and if ever there was an example
we got a whole separate
case,
discussion about that later on.
I know, and we will.
Oh,
but I just want to say,
I'm seeing that soon. Don't spoil
all
that.
I want to say is that Chris Evans totally ruins a whole perfect system. You tell me if you agree once you see it, Tommy.
That's funny.
Let's talk. Go ahead.
I understand. Oh, just to finish. I mean,
Yeah.
I really appreciate what you guys are saying, and potentially, in the start, I didn't say that it was a bad movie. I said that I didn't enjoy it, and I'm willing to take on that maybe it just deals really smartly in a way that I wasn't prepared for from a summer tentpole of dealing with things.
You said, hey, who put politics in my popcorn movie? What's going on here?
And usually I'd be okay with that, but now thinking about it, hearing what you guys are saying, mob mentality, fear mongering, using propaganda, and then also, as a complete side note, animals being hurt.
Let's talk about that.
Are four things that are intrinsically in me, like I hate. So potentially I liked, this is a great movie, and I didn't enjoy it just because I'm me. And that's okay. But I like the idea of that it's not a failing of the movie. It's just that it just hit too many buttons for me. It was too smart in ways of things that I really hate and don't want to watch. Fair enough?
Totally fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I want to talk about a little bit about the battle in that context too, because one of the things that they did with this battle scene is, I think it was timed.
Which battle
really
scene?
This was the big
invasion
thing, the invasion, with the apes kind of
The
crash.
assault on the tower.
The assault on the tower.
Led by Scar.
Right, Scar.
I'm calling him Scar. I can't remember.
Right, Koba. So this is one of those things that I think was timed really well. I feel like at the point that, for me, I'm curious about your statement, Tom, because for me, by the time we see this attack, these apes are, to me, not animals anymore. And I found that interesting. I didn't make that connection until you just said it about animals being hurt. Animals being hurt, like the opening sequence when the bear slashes at Blue Eyes, and there was real threat there. And I was afraid for the ape. But by the time the battle happens, they weren't apes in my head anymore, and it was just they had absorbed, like we said, the worst of humanity, and they were executing on that. And I thought, in that respect, that was sort of emotional sleight of hand, that they got me to feel that way about these animals that are usually, I would want to snuggle with.
I have something to say about the battle, but I think it might sideline what you're talking about, so let's keep going with that for now.
No, I was done. Who else? What else? What do you think?
I was going to say that's where I think I came up with, that's where I started to get really upset, is that incredibly visualized, the on top of the tank visualization, to use CGI in such a smart and limited way of this, like almost like you're trapped by the camera as the tank turret is going around. I thought that was thrilling.
Yeah.
I thought it was such a smart way, because CGI, like we talked about with Godzilla, certain filmmakers, Michael Bay, like they would say, like just because they can show you everything, they would. Smart filmmakers use CGI and then like shadow the view. But then again, while I loved that entire shot so much, where I really started to get distanced from this movie was from that entire battle sequence, because that's when I realized I didn't know who I was rooting for.
Oh, that's so great. Yes.
I had no one to root for, and then that's what I mean when I say like I got anxious and vaguely sad, It's because I didn't know where to put my emotions. There's a lot of animals and a lot of people being hurt, and I don't have anyone that I know who to win for. So that's just not fun for me. I'm not saying it's not smart. I'm just saying it's like I'm not enjoying myself. It's just sad and tragic and weird.
Well, I think that the Apes series has had definitely a lot of tragedy in it as you build to some of these endings that kind of keep moving the story in a way that is is challenging. The first one ends discovering that humans obliterated the Earth, and that's where they really are. The second one ends with destruction of the planet. The third one ends with Cornelius and Zira getting killed. I'm spoiling all of these original movies, but I mean, they all have this horribly tragic tone to them. And it seems like that's really the direction that they've always been going with these films. Even Rise of the Planet of the Apes definitely has that as these apes. Yes, they gain freedom, but it's very painful. He has to separate from his human friend that he has grown up with, and it always has kind of had a tone that is more difficult. And yes, you could say that Caesar is the protagonist of the film, and we're kind of following his journey in this story. But it does, you're right, it makes it very hard to watch that scene when Caesar is taken out of the picture for a while, and we're left watching this horror unfold.
It's a war based on a lie.
Right.
Yeah, my friend sitting next to me, he leaned over and said, I hate where this is. I know where this is going, and I hate it. Yeah. Because as much as he loved the movie, I mean, he could see this, this devastation that was coming, and it really is. It's a horrible thing to have to watch.
I think that's part of the thing that was so exciting for me about it, and I think the last line really cinches it. When they are, they're holding each other, Caesar and what's his name?
Malcolm.
The actor Jason Clarke, but Malcolm. They're sitting there talking, and he says, war. The war's begun, and we can't stop it. I don't remember what the exact words were, but we started the war, and
we can never be forgiven.
Humans will not forget.
Yeah, and humans will not forget. So this is. That, because what I found myself rooting for was not one side or the other, but oh my God, please, let's I'm rooting for some civil-headed leader and not to get sucked in. I want to see, resolution, but I feel like they have to take it to an even darker place in order to reward us with that resolution. And that is even more, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's even more pretext for the next movie to come, which is going to be the war movie. I mean, it's going to be World War Z of apes.
Right.
Is it?
Well, it's... Yeah,
very little happened in this movie overall.
Well, that's really. I mean, I think that the assault on the tower is the first battle in the war, and Caesar's final statement in this film, I think, suggests, and based on the fact that Dreyfus tells Malcolm, the army's coming. We got in touch with them. They're on their way. This is now going to grow into a much larger scale. That's where we get to it. It started as a tiny story. It started as as we discussed, Caesar's story, and we have Malcolm's story sort of paralleling that. And if you think about it, Malcolm is really that. Whenever you're in a new world, in the realm of science fiction, you often need that character that doesn't quite get anything, so that the audience can see the film through his or her eyes to understand things. And I think in this film, that's where the audience starts to identify with Malcolm when he's at the bottom of the tower. Dreyfus and the other guys have rigged C4 to bring the tower down. We know Caesar's up there trying to take back his throne, basically, to take back control of the apes so that we can have this civil headed leader. And he's trying to tell them, just give them time. They need time. And they're like, they're confused. What? They're apes. We're going to bring this thing down because we need to eliminate them. And at that moment, I thought, this is really interesting because in the story of Caesar, what role do these humans have as we as an audience? Because I agree with Tom, when we think Caesar's dead, the apes are assaulting the tower. It's like, this is now going to become, who do I root for? Is this going to be, Empire Strikes Back ending on such a down ending where we've got, just feeling horrible about this tragic loss. But we get that resolution with Malcolm, I think, of we've got somebody that sees that potential that we can root for, that's going to fight the good fight. And I think that's the twist, the turn that I really enjoyed in terms of the story of how they redeemed sort of that darkness of that assault on the Tower with the Apes, is that moment with Malcolm holding that, holding Dreyfus and those guys up and saying, no, don't take down the tower.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys are making a lot of, but again, it's I wasn't trying to be argued. I wasn't trying to be convinced that the film is good. I was just saying that I didn't enjoy it.
Oh no!
But I like that you guys the points. I mean, even just what you just said. It's so much smarter than it needs to be.
Yes,
in such a good way
That's
of
a great point,
about diplomacy, about current. Xenophobia, current relations, current everything, political everything is just, it's interesting of what's the best way to make an allegory of how we deal with each other is ape versus man. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not fun for me, but it's very smart.
Well, what I find it really impressive is, what I understand from just reading a few of the articles is that initially when Matt Reeves came on board, the original story was set to take place much farther in the future, where the apes civilization had really been firmly established, more along the lines of the original Planet of the Apes film. And he said, no, we need to bring this back, because we ended with Caesar in the woods and that. So what happens before we get to the Planet of the Apes, and to be able to bring the story back and then architect something this complex, the writers to be able to pull something like this together, as I understand it, in a matter of just a few months is truly impressive. To have a story that resonates on so many levels, that works, that to me just clicking on all cylinders at all times, where I see what's coming. It makes sense. I can understand everybody's motives, to even have, Dreyfus, his iPad, booting up and seeing the pictures and understanding again for him where that anger is coming from, that he's not just, I'm going to be the villainous human that's just got this grudge against apes because the story needs that. It's we're going to take a moment to get into these characters and to be able to write that and structure it so that it just, for 2 hours and 12 minutes to keep us on the edge of our seats and
that
across
it's
a range
worth
of
it.
Emotions. Yes, exactly.
There's the one guy who's the name again?
Kirk
The guy,
Esposito?
yeah, the worst.
Carver?
The worst.
He was
Carver.
the worst. He made me very angry. He was just anger and grossness for anger and grossness sake. But I do like what you just said, Steve, and also the fact that we weren't treating the apes like just this perfect society that then humans are like, yeah, we're jerks. We want to come in and mess up your thing. That there's also anger and grossness and vindictiveness, understandable or not. I like that it was a ape versus human, but one side wasn't right.
Yeah, both sides were very broken.
Yeah. which I appreciated. Again, apparently I didn't enjoy, but I appreciate it.
How did, let's talk a little bit more about Matt Reeves and some of the choices he made. What do you think, how did this hold up? For those, I mean, Matt Reeves, I think the biggest thing he made prior to this is Cloverfield. Loved it. Go ahead and then Let Me In, right?
They did Let Me In, right.
I, as you may well expect, did not see Let Me In, but horror connoisseurs among us, what do we think of that one?
Oh, I had to see the original first, saw that, and then saw this, trying to understand, with such a smart film, why remake it, and can you pull it off? Because I had been tremendously disappointed by the American version of The Vanishing, because that was such a stellar foreign film, and then to see the English, the American version ruin it, to see the same thing happen with La Femme Nikita and Point of No Return, I was really concerned about a really strong film being sort of remade. And to me, it works entirely on its own. It is a sharp film. I totally did not see that Cody Smith-McPhee was in that, but that was 5 years ago. He was a little kid then, and now he's playing Malcolm's son in this film. Because I'm like, why does he look familiar? And then Andy pointed out to me he was also the kid from The Road.
Yep.
But no, Matt Reeves, I'm really interested to see where he goes, where his career takes him, because everything that he's done has been of quality. I've always been impressed with his filmmaking, so I'm very excited to see what he tackles next.
Agreed. I think he's fantastic. And I loved Cloverfield. I liked Let Me In very much. And I felt like it was closer to like a remake like The Ring, where it took foreign... I don't know if I'm sounding like it took things that don't quite work in American sensibilities, but made them work without cheapening the film at all.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So do you feel like he's directed enough to be able to see this is a Matt Reeves film? Are you seeing any of his sort of tropes and style?
I don't know that he's a
that's
filmmaker that
tough.
has that characteristic style that you could say, oh, that's a Matt Reeves shot, or that's a structure he uses. I'd say just that a competent filmmaker that produces quality work. I'd have to see more. I'm not as familiar with his work in television to see what he does stylistically.
Wait, you're not up on Felicity?
I can say offer one thing, and it's kind of
Okay.
it's repeating something that I said before, but the creative use of CGI, knowing when not to, just because you can make it show it, the impossible.
Oh, with like
don't,
Cloverfield, yeah.
With Cloverfield, it was exists in shadows. It's a lot of like, just show enough to entice you, because then what you can't see is so much more terrifying than what you can't. So he keeps the door closed a lot. And I thought that in this film, especially with like the tank scenes, some of the big scenes were done where you can see a whole, like a zillion apes running towards the fortress, but it's there in rack focus, out of focus. And instead you're seeing Gary Oldman's terror looking at them. That's better than just seeing a zillion apes run towards the forest.
Yeah, which, is interesting given how many times we saw a zillion apes in the forest. Like, you're right. I mean, his choices are, I think, what's important to note here. But I found myself, I think he can get away with more CG given how good the CG is.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, where seemed like a lot of apes. Were we like... Was there like an ape factory? I feel like a lot of apes died, and then there was always more apes. Did that bother anyone else? I'll be over here. Okay.
No,
cool.
I'm trying to. I think I actually had that same feeling, but I let it go.
Okay, fair enough.
But there were a lot of apes. I mean, they said initially there were like 80.
More than 80, right?
Yeah. But then it said that's a lot more than 80.
Yeah.
And so I mean, we know that there was, it was an army of apes.
It was an army of apes, and I think the challenge was that they only showed that one ape set for the ape home.
Right.
They only showed that one set, and where it sort of teases, they sort of tease it out when Malcolm walks up the path, and he's walking under that under the arch of sticks, that kind of bridge, and the gorillas come out from behind him. That you get that's the first time I think you get a sense that apes live.
They're all over the
elsewhere,
place.
Right? They don't all live up under the tree.
Right.
So that I think they get away with hiding apes that then suddenly appear in rank and file.
That was neat because I hadn't re-seen the old one, and then until I got reminded from this one. But that when in the initial walk up, when he's first holding out his hands, that sign from the windows, they've etched that onto a lot of the wood. I thought that was really sweet. I like that.
Okay, what else do we think of? Let's just walk through some of the other performances. Jason Clarke plays Malcolm, and I think I think he serves a great role and also plays it really well. He's sort of unspoken, solid performance that might get hidden in the wake of Andy Serkis and crew.
Yeah, I think he brings a lot of humanity to it. I mean, you can see it maybe a little strong. I think Entertainment Weekly said, they felt like Jason Clarke was so tearful through so much of the movie that they felt like they needed to give him a tissue, and which I can see that, I guess, but I actually really connected with his performance. I felt he showed the fear, like when when he was brought into the ape, the living area,
That was terrifying.
And just you could see absolute horror on his face, and just that fear, that look on his face, like I have no idea what's about to happen, but I very well could die.
Yeah.
And I think he conveyed that through so many of his looks throughout the film. So major kudos to him, I think.
I would just add, this is the film that actually has me, and I know, Andy, you and your inner child aren't talking, but this actually is the film that has me actually excited a little bit for Terminator Genesis, in which Jason Clarke will be playing John Connor.
Wait,
Please.
That'd be an interesting mashup.
Yeah, it would be an interesting John Connor. So that'll be interesting. So, do we want to talk about Felicity, Kerry Russell?
She
It's always
cried
nice
a lot.
to see her in things.
She was, it's weird. Her strongest performance, I think, was in the first 10 minutes of, what was it, Mission Impossible 3, when her brain blew up inside of her skull. But you know what?
So mean.
I know, but you know what? I don't mean it as mean. Like, I love seeing her
panic before that happened.
Well,
yeah.
she was like juiced on adrenaline. They shot her in the heart with the adrenaline monkey juice, and then she was like strong and I'm gonna shoot stuff and then get on a helicopter and then my brain blows up. And I thought that was so cool, seeing her in that kind of a role, and I wanted to see that kind of energy and excitement from her in this film, and instead she was sort of a set piece. So for an actress that I generally quite like, and I think she does strong characters well, I felt like she was underused here.
I thought she was too. Yeah, I mean, I got uncomfortable because she was crying in every single scene that she was in for a while, and then she was competent, but only off screen. Like there was a lot of like operating and stuff like that, but always happened when we weren't watching. I had one. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, mine is a dumb joke.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, then we want it.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just because we brought up Kerry Russell, this might not be Pete. Write down the time code. This might not be funny for anyone, but the scene where they find Caesar hurt and alive, shot but alive, and they load him into the back of a van, and he's sort of talking and saying, "It's ape, not human." And Kerry Russell says, "Try not to speak. You need to rest." I thought that she should say, "Try not to speak. You need to rest." Also, try not to speak. You're a monkey. You're freaking everyone out. Stop talking. You're a monkey. And that's the Tom joke of the night. All right, I'm done.
No, that's funny though, because at that moment I actually thought not the same thing, but I was like, it sounds weird saying that to an ape.
Yeah.
Say,
Right.
Don't speak.
Try not to speak. You're a monkey. Yeah, that's weird.
I think the challenge with this film, and I maybe speak to some of the performances by the human actors, the human characters, is that this really is the ape story. And so all the human characters tend to be of a more supporting role, because I think you have to talk about the balance of, we've talked about Caesar, but even Koba, that performance, that character, and just how that character is written, and again, how do we characterize those performances for the motion capture performance? But I think that is really the strength of the film, and to be able to sit back and look at the facial expressions, the performance, the physicality of the performances, I think is going to overwhelm any of the human performances. I mean, Jason Clarke holds his own, and I think Gary Oldman does the Gary Oldman thing, and nothing to critique about it. I think he does it well, but I think because the story is so ape-centric, that's really where we're going to see so much of the transformation in the characters, the relationship between Caesar and his son that we see over several scenes, and that performance. And I guess because we're not familiar with how do you read ape body language in a performance, how do they get that across? And that may be the challenge of, the subtleties of that. Because I think Caesar's wife, that yes, she was sick, but that was one where I thought I just wasn't getting a lot of emotion through that that performance. And I was really surprised to see that it was Judy Greer that was the actress that was playing that role, because I didn't really get anything from the performance.
Yeah, again, it's funny to say that she was sort of poorly used, because really, mostly she was just laying down and framed by other monkeys.
And whining and having a weird thing on her head. But
Well,
that being said,
it speaks in general. It speaks in general to how it speaks in general how the females were treated, or female roles were written, I should say, in the film. They were vastly underwritten. Really, is what it boils down to.
Yeah,
actually, that's a good
human
point.
Side.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation.
And it doesn't pass that. What's that test? The Bechdel test.
Oh,
no idea.
Yeah, there's a test, right? I know what you're talking about. It's like I
talked about it with the people that I saw the movie with today, and I'm so dumb that I don't remember. But the idea is that it was a test written from by a female writer in a graphic novel, just as a joke, but then it became kind of a serious thing. The basic idea,
the Bechdel test,
the Bechdel test.
Test.
The two women characters, they have to talk to each other, and they have to talk to something besides a man. Yeah,
exactly.
you don't.
Right. The joke, there's a joke about it, which is two women walk into a bar. One woman says to the other, "Hey, have you heard about the Bechdel test?" And the other woman says, "Yeah, my boyfriend told me about it."
Right.
This film would fail that by definition.
Yeah.
There was only one character, one real female character of note. But also going into what we were saying about the emotions about apes versus humans and stuff, and going back to the director. I mean, you know me and my dislike or inability to connect with fake things, riding on fake things, doing fake things. This movie had, an ape double wielding machine guns on a horseback, and I didn't laugh and walk out of the theater.
That's funny, because I actually made that mental note. Tom must be crawling out of his skin at a CG ape on a horse.
I was okay with it, because I think that's the way that he made it work, the director. You know what I mean? Like, he made it feel, while I didn't care for the overall emotional resonance of the sequence, I think he's really talented.
Truly. All right. Hey, you know what? We've been talking for a long time. Let's buzz through any other notes you've got and crank on to the part that I know you're all most excited about.
Well, I want to point out Terry Notary, who is he played Rocket in the film, actually, and in Rise of the Planet of the Apes also. He not only played Rocket, but he is a movement coach, and he's studied apes. And so I think a huge kudos needs to go out to him, because he actually is the one who trained all the actors, including Andy Serkis, as to how to actually walk like an ape when you're walking on all fours, how to walk like an ape would be on when you're walking on just two legs. And I mean, he's a movement coach who's been doing not just ape movement, but movement in films since 2000, when he helped Jim Carrey in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Just all sorts of stuff, but there's something about what he has brought to this film that I think, aside from the amazing actors who are doing this and the amazing effects people, these people had to actually learn how to move like apes do. And I think that's really due to Terry.
Cool.
I agree with that. I think, and Andy, you and I talked about this. There's this idea that, particularly as we were watching the behind-the-scenes stuff for Rise, one of the things to note is just how different the apes move from one another, right?
Yeah.
They don't all move like the same ape. Like, they each, it is so unique. I think that's a great shout out probably to.
Right, because the chimps and the orangutans, they all have to have their own different thing.
Right.
It doesn't have that kind of fake, like, long shot of a bunch of fake CGI people all moving in the same way. Right. You're right. That's great.
Yeah. And Michael Giacchino did the music, and it was fantastic. It was an amazing score. So big kudos to Michael for this.
Thank you.
Were you Michael?
What? Oh, I was just pretending to be. I'm sorry.
He did. Did we talk about Space Mountain at Disney? He does the music for Space Mountain now.
Oh,
yeah. They actually tell you it's a Michael Giacchino score.
Is there new music, or he always? Oh, really?
No, it's new music. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, it's
awesome.
crazy. It's cool. It's a great score for a roller coaster.
Can you find it online?
I don't know. I've never tried.
All right.
All right, then. All right. Anybody else have any final points?
The look of the film, production design, cinematography, I think everything looked really great all through. I didn't see really problems with anything in the film.
No.
Just giving a nice shout out to all them.
They did great. I think this is a test, and I don't want to feel like I'm rushing if you guys want to jump into and talk about some time, but I think this is a great testament to the film that we end up spending more time talking about the sort of philosophical and cultural implications of apes that can speak and build civilization more than just the movie. I mean, this is a movie that caused us to ask some questions, and I appreciate that, and I think that's a sign of the whole production was fantastic.
It helped. This conversation helped me appreciate it more.
The last time we had a conversation like this was for Divergent, I think, actually.
Yeah.
You loved it.
I say we flick chart it, shall we?
Flick chart, grab a banana, it's flick chart time. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to say is I forgot to say this when it was appropriate. You can edit this in. Instead of having a huge stockpile in this weird warehouse that is outside of the main walls, instead of filling that filled with guns, we should just fill them with bananas.
Oh.
Monkeys love bananas, am I
They
right?
love- yes. Hey, speaking of, in Battle for Planet of the Apes, I thought this was really charming. When the apes are living as servants and
Conquest.
Or as Conquest. They're living as servants and wait staff at major restaurants.
Right.
And they tip the wait staff in raisins. I thought that was so cute. The monkeys come up and they give them raisins. It's quite adorable. Yeah. And Flickchart. So you head over to flickchart.com/TNR Film Board, and you can see all the films that we've talked about. The Gang of Thugs has come together to talk about and see how this film, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, is going to stack up. Shall we?
Let's find out. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or Cloud Atlas.
I finally seen Cloud Atlas. I can rank this one.
Me too.
Yay.
Wow.
Steve, you go first. I'm so excited. It's like prom night.
Yay, apes.
Cloud Atlas.
Ooh. Oh. However will it end? Andy?
This feels like a setup in one of the shows, one of the many shows with judges where, one goes one way, then the next goes the next way. Which way will it go now?
It always has to be a tiebreaker, yeah.
It always, it seems that way. I'm going Planet of the Apes on this one.
I'll tell you in about 10 minutes after this commercial break. I also am going to go Planet of the Apes.
Okay. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I'm still going Planet of the Apes.
Wait, was the Winter Soldier the one that I didn't see? I'm so dumb. I got it.
You would,
I'm
yeah.
just this past April.
Yeah,
right.
you were
That's
there.
right. I'm going to say Captain America.
I'm also going to say Captain America.
Oh, Steve.
Slammer.
Steve, come on. Don't blow this for us. Steve, I have nothing in. I have nothing.
Oh my gosh, because they both have a lot but they have a lot that they go on. They have a large scale story. But I'm going to tell you why.
America one has
Because of what I call the Dharma exposition bunker, I have to go with Apes. Because I think just the script and the structure and the thematic resonances with this film, I'm going to set it apart. They're both. I mean, this is a really close one for me. But I think Captain America just had a few little flaws that just kind of kept it there.
Wait,
so we have a tie.
The Dharma exposition bunker?
Yes.
Is this a new thing?
No, in Captain America, when they're down in the bunker and they encounter the thing, and the Toby Jones, the computer program, unloads.
He's in the computer.
When they found what's his name? Yeah.
I call it the Dharma Exposition bunker. Yeah,
that was That's a good name
That's the
for it.
sequence that's going to throw Captain America.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, because it bothered me. And if you go back and listen to our discussion,
You're right.
Whereas with this one, there's not. I mean, not saying this is without maybe some
This
little
had
flaws,
some
but nothing that really
exposition.
it did, but up front. But everything else, as I said, it just clicked along for me in the
right.
character pieces. So now we're a house divided cannot stand against itself.
Curses. All right.
Where's
gonna-
when we need
Did
him?
you?
Here we
did
go.
You just write that? That's amazing.
Shakespeare.
I stole it from the Lego movie.
Oh, okay.
A house divided against itself would be better than this. Abraham Lincoln,
all right.
don't know.
Are you ready, Andy? Shall we?
Yeah.
Oh, are you gonna rock paper apes for it?
Yes,
Is that what
we're
you're
going to rock, paper, apes. What does apes beat?
everything because they bang the rocks together to start fire that sets the paper on fire. So
Paper does cover ape, though. Paper cover.
Wow.
No, fire burns.
Right,
apes.
here we go.
You know,
Rock,
and
paper, scissors.
Okay.
Ready?
1, 2, 3.
Scissors.
Rock.
Damn.
Yes.
All right, fine.
Yes.
I don't think I saw this movie.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or Prisoners?
Oh.
Prisoners.
I would say Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, I'll definitely watch it more than Prisoners. Prisoners is a hard film to watch.
Yeah, I would say Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep, I'm still sticking with
Yeah.
Prisoners.
Yeah, no, I'll watch Apes more often, and I think because Pete, I'm gonna disagree with you on the fact that I think this one will hold up later on, and I think it's gonna, especially when we get the next one, which I'm hoping they crack that story open, that this is gonna have that pivotal, almost Empire Strikes Back moment feel to it.
I hope so. I hope so too. I really do. I just and I'm not saying I don't think it will. I'm just saying I don't know.
Yeah,
but I'm still with you. I'm going to go with Planet of the Apes over Prisoners.
Oh
on
yeah,
this one.
oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Planet of the Apes.
All right. Well, let's see where this one goes. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or Edge of Tomorrow? Our
Edge
new
of
favorite.
Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow with a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, you like that?
Mm-hmm.
I would actually go Edge of Tomorrow on this one.
Whew.
As much as I love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Edge of Tomorrow is just a joy to watch from beginning to end.
Yes, I agree.
Don't you want to
So,
watch
so
that
is,
one again?
so is Dawn. So is Dawn.
Yeah.
Who wants
but
to watch
it's
the
a darker
monkey
film.
movie again? Ugh, it's so
Right.
upsetting. Ugh.
So I
Steve?
Who are we waiting on?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Edge of
Oh,
Tomorrow.
really?
I mean,
Oh,
that
good.
was,
It's-
I think we're unanimous on
he,
that.
he was
That
quietly
just
agreeing. It was a
yeah,
silent
I
agreement.
was like my voice doesn't count on this. It doesn't matter. We've all
It's
agreed.
nice to hear. It's nice to hear.
Okay. Yeah. No. It's
All right.
easily. Yeah.
All right. Well, there we are. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is number 3 on ClickStart.
Wow.
Sandwiched between Edge of Tomorrow and Prisoners. Out of 24 films, it is number 3. So there you go.
Awesome.
Not bad.
Awesome. We're on a stretch, gents. I feel pretty good about this. We had a couple of good movies in a row. I don't want to jinx it, but I probably just did.
Yep. Good. Way to go.
I hope not, because I'm really looking forward to Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, you just gave it away. That's next month.
I didn't give it away. It's on our Letterboxd page.
Exactly where you gave it away before.
Before people went and looked there.
Right.
Before Pete had a chance to say, "Hey, everybody, go
I-
check out on Letterboxd."
Yeah, you should do that too. Letterboxd.com/it's still the next reel, right? We don't have a
Yes.
film board page.
It's the next reel.
And we have a little list set up over there right now. Or something.
Yep, the next reel film board's watch list.
There we go. That's what you're looking for. You can find out what movie to watch and get yourself prepped for Guardians of the Galaxy next month. Hey, Tommy Handsome, thanks so much for joining the gang tonight, as always.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And Steve Sarmento, good to hear your voice, as always.
Yes, it's always a joy to delve into deep, meaningful discussions with you, gents.
Andy.
You again. Well, it was a lovely conversation about a fantastic movie.
It was. I feel like the summer season is starting off well.
I
Yeah.
just hope that it actually does well at the box office. I hope that, considering Edge of Tomorrow, is just barely cracked the top 20. I think it's hanging on at number 19 of releases this year. I'm hoping that Dawn will find a way to kind of get in there too, because this has been a kind of a rough year for film. So
It has, and I feel like this may be the reverse jinx. Like all last year, all the movies we did for the film board were terrible, but I think they performed well. And now all the movies that we're seeing are great, and we're totally screwing them over at the box office. So this is the reverse curse.
What if we were in charge of Hollywood? What if it was
what
up
a
to us?
mess.
Ugh.
Hey, this was fun. Thanks, everybody. Check us out at thenextreel.com. You can read the blog stylings of the Once and Future King, Steve Sarmento. See all the regular Next Reel shows. Listen to all the episodes of all the great movies that we've talked about. And, of course, all of the other Film Board shows. That's all I have to say. And good night.
We did it!